first saw Thomas Sowell when I would watch Firing Line, the show that William F. Buckley had on PBS for 20-some odd years. And Thomas Sowell came on the show and started talking about how he thought racism was not a major problem in America anymore, which stunned me, because I'm 14. And he was opposed to affirmative action, which doubly stunned me. I kind of felt that given the fact that we got jacked over because of slavery and because of Jim Crow, they kind of owed us this. And he talked about how if you don't raise your game, you'll always be a second-class citizen. It's not fair to make other people who are white stand at the back of the bus because of something that their forefathers did. He talked about the small number of white people that have any real connection with slavery. Right now, only about 5 white Americans have any real generational connection to slavery, meaning that their ancestors owned slaves. Even during slavery in the South, only 1 out of 10 people owned slaves. And most of those only owned 1 or 2 because they were expensive. Most white people have come to the country after that. So when you look at all the white people in America, only about 5% have any real connection to slavery. And he said stuff like that. So why should everybody else pay for something that their ancestors had nothing to do with? And I was flabbergasted by that. So I began reading his books. He's written about 40 books. David Mamet, the playwright, called Thomas Sowell America's greatest contemporary philosopher. Not economist, philosopher. Because he writes a column in about 300 newspapers, been writing it now for 20 or 30 years, written about 30 or 40 books. If you guys don't know him, go on YouTube and you'll see him and check him out and meet him. So I'm fast forward now, I'm doing talk radio, and I'm on C-SPAN. My show in those days was 4 hours. They put the entire 4-hour show live on C-SPAN, so anybody in the country could see it. I get a letter from a man named Thomas Sowell. Dear Larry, my wife and I watched you. You were amazing. I just want you to know how thoroughly impressed we were with you. If I can do anything for you, let me. It's like getting a letter from Elvis. You know, he's still alive. And Tom Sowell invited me to his home. He lives in the Bay Area. He's so secretive. I mean, you should see the mail I get, death threats I get. Imagine the death threats he got 30 years ago saying this kind of stuff. So in his office at Stanford, he doesn't even have his name on the door. He's had so many death threats. He won't even give you his address. When he asked me to come up and visit him, he picked me up from the airport. He wasn't going to give me his address. So we went to his house, spent the weekend together, and I just asked him questions, and it was just probably one of the best weekends I've ever had. He's also a photographer, and you can go online and see some of his work. And he said if he could do it all over again, he would have been a photographer full time. And I said, that's what I said. I said, Tom, honestly, your pictures are wonderful, but there are a lot of good photographers. There's only one contemporary, greatest American contemporary philosopher, and that's you. Anyway, he's an amazing guy. He does a lot of work about the damage done by many of these programs that the left thinks that they're helping. Minimum wage, for example. Most people think minimum wage is just something that needs to be done because if you don't have a minimum wage, bosses are so cheap and so ornery they won't pay you jack. Turns out that before the minimum wage, a black teenager was more likely to have a job than a white teenager. Why? Because a black teenager would market for lower wages. I worked for less money than this white kid would. His cost of living was lower, so black kids were able to market their skills lower than a white kid. All of a sudden, the law comes in, designed, by the way, by white racists, because they were tired of these unskilled black teenagers taking jobs away from other white teenagers. So all of a sudden, they put in a minimum wage telling people, you got to pay here. Well, this guy's willing to work here. Sorry, you got to pay here. Well, if you're going to pay here, you can get some white people to do that. And so for the first time, white teenagers began to have more jobs as a percentage than black teenagers. It had the opposite effect that most black people today, left-wing people today, think it has. So you have Hillary and Obama all raising the minimum wage, having no blooming idea how much damage this is doing to the very people they claim that they care about. He also talks a lot about family and about the relationship between the welfare state and single-parent households and how much damage it's doing. He's where I've gotten a lot of my data, my information, he's just an incredible guy. So Thomas Sowell, S-O-W-E-L-L is his name. Yes,
when is it on? When
hold on.
Oh,
yes, sir.
I'm just going to say you introduced me to Thomas. You introduced me to Thomas Sowell on your show and recommended ethnic.
And Thomas Sowell, as you know, has gone around the world twice. Looked at every culture you can think of. And what he's concluded is that hard work wins. And if you don't think of yourself as a victim, and you work hard, live below your means, you're going to succeed. sir.
I was listening to you, while I was listening to your story about your father, I was reminded of how my own journey growing up and having various opportunities to develop.
And if you try hard, people will help you. People will come to you. If you are trying hard. If people see that you're struggling, but you're trying hard, people will help you. Believe me, they'll come and help you. But if you don't try and you have a negative attitude, it's on you. One of the things that bothers me about the so-called black leadership today, there's probably 3 major black leaders as far as the media is concerned. By the way, when you ask young people, who is your role model, they don't say Jesse, they don't say Al Sharpton, they don't say Minister Farrakhan, they say my mom, my dad, my aunt, somebody in my neighborhood. Most people say that. Only a small percentage say Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton or Louis Farrakhan, but those are the ones the media go to. Speaking of them, and Jesse and I were talking about this when we were on my show last time, all 3 of them have had really serious issues with their own fathers. Jesse Jackson's dad is the married man who was living next door to his teenage mother. And when Jesse Jackson was growing up in South Carolina, he was taunted, Jesse ain't got no daddy, Jesse ain't got no daddy. Sharpton had a middle-class upbringing, everything was going fine. Father abandoned the family, down to the ghetto. Farrakhan's mom was estranged from her husband, had a boyfriend, took back up with the husband briefly, had sex, got pregnant, didn't want the boyfriend to know, tried to abort what became Farrakhan with a coat hanger. So all of these men had issues with their own fathers. This is why I believe, if I were a psychologist, I'm not, but I believe all of them have anger issues with their own fathers. And they're taking it out on everybody else and telling you what the white man is doing to them. White man doesn't have that much power. It really doesn't. I mean, honestly. Going to stop you from studying? What does white racism have to do with your ability to do 2 good, hard hours of homework every night and graduate from high school with a degree that reflects your ability to read, write, and compute at grade level? What does that have to do with white racism? Nothing. And it's an excuse. And what Jesse Jackson has done to people, why you won't come on my show? A few years ago, there were some black teenagers fighting after a football game in Decatur, Illinois. They got kicked out. It should have been. In comes Jackson, sues the school board, which is all white, and accuses them of racism. The school board defended itself by noting that in Oakland, where the school board is all minority, black kids are also kicked out at a higher percentage than in their student body. And in this one over here, where the school board is partially black and partially white, black kids in the school are also kicked out at a higher rate. So it didn't matter. Black kids were acting out. The reason they're acting out, as I said before, there aren't fathers in the home. I have a friend who teaches elementary school. She said, in the very first day, of the very first semester, I can tell which kids came from 2-parent households and which ones didn't. Because on a Monday is when they've had the weekend and they've all been frisky, and I can tell the ones that won't sit in their chair came from a home where there's no father. I can tell, and do it with a great deal of accuracy. Anyway, so Jackson goes and files this lawsuit. It's thrown out by the court. However, after that, teachers said elementary kids, school kids in Decatur, Illinois, would come up to me when I would try to discipline them, and they would say, leave me alone, I'm going to call Jesse. So this is the damage this man does. If you already think you're a victim and you give somebody an excuse, every victim needs a victimizer.
Amen. I'll pass it by.
We got time for one more question. Neward?
Yes, sir. No.
Okay. 2 more.
Yes, John, man. You.
Oh, I didn't have.
I thought you had one. I'm sorry.
I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about how someone as yourself, you have overcame some of the challenges you did, but yet you have people like Bill Ayers running around still taking the positions they do. And just speak a little bit to the interview. I know you got him on your radio show at one point. If you could maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I did have Bill Ayers on my show, and it was kind of DEFCON 1.
It was good.
Yeah. These are white liberals who I think with the best of intentions really think that they're helping things, but they're not. All they're doing is giving people excuses. And what I don't like is the contradiction between what they tell their own kids and what they tell us. Around the dinner table, I'm sure when Bill Ayers is raising his kids, he says, work hard, get an education, do your homework, don't make bad moral mistakes. You, the man's holding you back. And it's condescension. It's a complete rejection of what they know really works because they don't think the rules apply to you. And I really, really, really resent it, which is why I feel the Democratic Party is doing a great deal of damage. By the way, my dad was always Republican, always, whole life. And my dad used to say, Democrats want to give you something for nothing.
Amen.
And when you try to get something for nothing, you often end up getting nothing for something. And he feels that Democrats, by telling black people that you're a victim, by telling them that, that we're going to lower the standard, will make things worse. I often say this. You remember the Dream Team, the Olympic Dream Team? With Magic and Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley and all those guys, crushed the rest of the world. Beat them by 50, 60, 70 points sometimes. It doesn't happen anymore. Why? The rest of the world raised their game. They didn't lower the hoop.
That's right.
They didn't widen it. It got better. Let's get better.
That's right.
Work harder, smarter, more disciplined, more dedicated. Put the same amount of time we put into shooting free throws as we put into math and science and literature, and we'll raise our own game.
Amen.
All right, guys. Thank you.